skeleton, a sport we've all tried in some form. Face first, lying down. Just as fast and furious as its sliding sisters, but with a close-up view of the speed and danger and cement walls rushing by, this may be the most dangerous ride of them all. This is Mount Van Hovenberg in Lake Placid, New York, where in the past we've brought you bobsledding and luge, and now we introduce the sport of skeleton. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. Welcome to the program. If you thought those other sports were crazy, you're going to love skeleton. Speeds close to 80 miles an hour and heads just inches away from the ice. Now joining me is a former skeleton competitor and ESPN analyst Dave Kurtz. Dave, a crazy sport, we admit, but some serious athletes in this program may be Olympic bound.
A world-class, exciting sport performed on a dangerous track. I think you're going to see the athletes showcase their talents here in preparation for the 1994 Olympics.
We should note that it was an Olympic sport in the past.
It was in 1924, 1948, and everyone's in expectation of a reestablishment for 1994.
Now, you mentioned world-class athletes. Who are some of the key players?
I think you're going to see key performances out of Christian Auer of Austria, the current World Cup points leader. Gregor Stali of Switzerland has an incredible push, and I think you're going to see big things from him on the track today. And we're also looking for a great performance out of homegrown boy Orvie Garrett from Massachusetts.
And entering this final World Cup race of the season, Orvie Garrett has a legitimate shot to move into the top three, just 2 points behind Martin Toller. Christian Auer leads the way. This track is a monster, especially in the eyes of the Europeans. Close to a mile long, the only bobsled and skeleton track in the United States. As we see a skeleton jump on the skeleton, Dave Kurtz takes us down the track.
It's important to have a big kick start to propel yourself down this track, building your momentum early to face the imposing monstrous curves that lay ahead. The first big test is shady, where the compression equals 4.3 Gs, the gravitational pull of a space shuttle liftoff. It's important to exit this curve lined up right down the center of the chute to approach the series of curves little less than curve 12, because here you must be prepared to face the most imposing, fearsome, high-contact curves on the international circuit. Zigzag, where you explode through the lip of zig and zag and must realign yourself to face the final straightaway to the finish curve. Keeping your shoulders low and building up your momentum to handle the G-force in the final finish curve, up and down into the finish wall. It's like surviving a 15-round match with the heavyweight champion.
While the run down the course may seem tough, the format is rather simple. 2 heats down for each slider. The fastest combined time wins this event. The first slider and the best American ever in this sport, 27-year-old Orvie Garrett out of Mount Washington, Massachusetts.
Orvie is using a long strided approach here to the start. Big kick, a little too much air at the start, and he has a 5:15 start, his best start ever on this track.
1500ths off the track record of 5 seconds even. The start is so important.
It's critical, Tim, to explode off the start with a long stride, fast foot speed, and a quick entry onto the sled.
Orvie Garrett with a 3rd place earlier this season in a World Cup race in Cortina, Italy. The best finish ever by an American. He also has a 5th place to his credit this season.
Orvie really ripped the seam out of the shady curve. A little contact with the wall, feet high in little less, and into 12.
Any contact is costly in a sport that's measured in hundreds of seconds. The track record 59.92 set by Orvie's teammate Terry Holland last season.
Exploding out of curve 15, steering down the straightaway to the finish.
And a time of 58.63. Garrett betters the track record by over 1 second. This could be a preview of the great and fast competition.
Orvie's got to be thrilled with that run. I'm sure he's just looking forward to getting down this run one more time in this race.
And a high five from a teammate as the American sets the pace. This is World Cup Skeleton from Lake Placid, New York. This ESPN program is being brought to you by Lee Easy Riders. And you have to go back that far to find out how he got involved.
My father was one of the pioneers in Europe. He started in the years 66, in '67, and I was every day on the track, and so those skeleton drivers. And so I begin with 19 years, and now it's my 8th season, and I'm lucky that I can do this sport.
And lucky he's still in one piece in this sport. Christian Auer, an ambassador of the sport of skeleton. Nice guy, great competitor, and we just saw one great timer. Are we about to see another?
Truly one of the class guys on the World Cup circuit. He's got a very quick start. He enters the sled early and keeps a low profile for maximum speed. 4.97, a new track record here at Lake Placid.
Betters Orvie Garrett by 1800ths and betters the track record by 300ths. Let's look at that again, Dave.
You can see how he has a double explosion with both feet off the starting block. He's driving forward. All his weight is forward over the sled, the quick foot speed, and the dart-like entry onto the sled.
So Christian Auer has set the standard, barring mistakes. We could see another track record. 58.63 is the time Orvie Garrett just had.
Smoothly down the straightaway. Oh, he's over on out of little S.
All sorts of trouble there. This will be tough to recover from, but he's still a half second in front.
He's still a half second in front, Tim, and he's still making a lot of contact with the walls out of the exits of these curves.
So Christian Auer, the two-time defending World Cup champion, going for his third. Betters Orvie Garrett's time, 58.47. Dave Kurtz, after those bumps midway down the track, Auer still manages to pull out the best time.
It's amazing to me how much time he can carry down this track. Oh, it looks like Christian's really injured himself.
Understandably so after these bumps.
Watch his legs here. He's really kissed the lip, and it knocks him over onto the left side of the sled. And he's barely able to hang on coming back on the right, using his feet as a rudder to stay clear into 12.
It's incredible how he can take those hits and still come away with the fastest time so far. Christian Auer now back on his feet and hopefully all right for the second run. You're looking at a veteran, 37-year-old Terry Holland of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Right now, the captain of this U.S. team shows and tells us about some skeleton equipment.
We're going to take a quick look at some of the equipment used in skeleton racing. We'll start off at the top with a helmet with an aerodynamically efficient visor and a face shield to protect the skeleton sledder's face. We have track spikes that we use to get a good start at the top of the run with spikes on the bottom so they'll dig into the ice. Very important in some of the rougher tracks like Lake Placid are gloves with padding on the back to protect your wrist, the back of your hand, and your fingers. You'll notice the sliders have very shiny suits. They're rubber-coated spandex and lycra, and the reason we wear these special suits is to have a lower wind drag so we can actually have a faster time down the run. These suits are important because they can be good for as much as a half a second faster time in a sport that's measured in hundreds of seconds. Under our suits, we slide pads on our elbows, particularly our knees, sometimes our shoulders, which are very important for a long racing career. The sled itself weighs between 70 and 90 pounds. It's a very simple construction, has two symmetrical runners on the base of the sled that can be adjusted to go faster or slower. The problem is when they go faster, sometimes you have a little bit of a control problem, but that's part of the thrill of the sport here. We have polished runners that have two grooves milled into the back of them that give us a little stability when we're going down the straightaway, which is important to stay off the walls because that slows your time down. On the top of the sled, we have the handles and we have the saddle, which is very important for the slider because if you hit a wall or when you're trying to maneuver down a straightaway, the saddle keeps the driver stable on the sled. These bumpers here help to protect the shoulders and hands of the slider a little bit on some of the concrete walls here at the course. And the padding is important to absorb some shock and help present a good aerodynamic profile for faster speed. The big trick you'll see is getting a good start at the top, build up a head of steam, jump on and enjoy the ride.
Time for Terry to enjoy this ride. We approach the start, 4:97, the start to beat. And they say you can't make up time after the start, so that's why it's so important.
It is very difficult. You'll see here Terry has a long, lanky frame, and his stride is long, but he accelerates as he enters onto the sled.
The grooves you see are actually one half of the bobsled grooves as we pick up Terry Holland approaching the first split, and he's over 1/2 second back.
It's still his best time ever on this track, and he's carrying himself well through shady. Holding off the wall down the straightaway, he seems to be in good shape here.
10 years ago, Terry Holland visited his dentist. While in the waiting room, he read an article on the sport of skeleton. That's how he got involved. had it not been for that cavity.
Cleaning through the transition, a big bang out of Zag.
The time to beat is that time right there, 58.47 by Austria's Christian Auer.
Ooh, high off the lip, and a rugged finish for Terry Holland.
A time of 58.94, his personal best, but good enough right now for only third place as we see another veteran, 36-year-old Austrian Martin Thaler, currently third in the World Cup standings.
Martin has no medal finishes this year, but he's always been consistently in the top 5. A 5:08 start for him, that's very good.
The second best of the competition as we take another look.
Martin really cranks up those 36-year-old legs at the start here. And look, he gets a 5:08 rump high as a spoiler as it would be on a racing car.
13-year veteran as we approach the first split, 27.67, 3/10 back. He says his goal in this sport right now is to wait for the Olympic Games, and we will touch on it later in this show, whether skeleton will in fact be at the Games of Lillehammer, but we're following Martin Thaler down the track and having trouble.
Oh, yes. You can see he's certainly not being mechanical. He has that aggressive Austrian fluidity.
But like Christian Auer, his teammate, he's having trouble, but a relatively good time as he approaches the finish curve.
He may be wild and all over. Oh! His helmet is rung up on the wall of the exit ramp.
58.81, third place for Martin Thaler. You're getting a great look at how dangerous and how fast this Lake Placid track is. Now up, Gregor Stolli, possibly Christian Auer's biggest threat. Stolli with 2 seconds and a 4th in 3 previous World Cup races this season.
He's got the best start on the World Cup circuit. 4.85, a new track record. Amazing for Gregor Stolli of Switzerland.
The starts just keep getting faster, and look at him drive into that sled.
He's exploding with that long stride and quick foot speed.
Christian Auer split time of 27.36, and Gregor Stolli betters it by 800ths.
He's carrying great speed down here and through Shady.
The greatest speed ever recorded in this sport, better than 85 miles per hour. That's a greater speed than bobsleds or luge have ever recorded as we approach the next split.
Ooh, he's 700ths behind Christian Auer at this point.
So Gregor Stolli having those same troubles on the same curves.
Yes, off the sled and back on is losing time down these final straightaways.
58.47 is not bettered by Gregor Stolli as his 58.56 is good enough only for second place as we wind down this first run of competition. So it's Christian Auer leading the way over Stolli, but by just 900ths of a second, while American Orby Garrett sits in third place and his teammate Terry Holland also in the top 5. Gregor Stolli is a sport which is European-born, World Cup bred, and possibly Olympic-bound.
Skeleton should be in the Olympics, I think, because it was the original sliding sport before bobsled and before luge. That was first started in some Ritz, and it was in the Olympics there. And I don't think it's a new sport to the Olympics. It's just reintroducing a sport that's already been in.
And a decision on the Olympic future of skeleton is due out later this year. But now at the start, as we begin second round action, is American Dave Juring, a bobsledder turned skeleton slider. This is a common crossover. Olympic bobsled driver Randy Will used to be a skeleton athlete.
That's right, and Dave is one of our fine, young, promising Americans that were looking for big things in the crossover from bobsled to skeleton.
A former collegiate All-American discus thrower. We take another look at the start.
Dave has a strong stride here, and he's going to enter the sled, I think, a little sloppy. A little flop with the feet and wide wings with the elbows.
As he makes his way back down the track, let's talk a little more, Dave, about this Olympic issue. Right now, what does it depend on?
It depends upon the FIBT, the international governing body of the sports of bobsled and skeleton, presenting the petition to the International Olympic Committee this June. And that way, the organizing committee of the Lillehammer 94 Olympics can get their wish to have skeleton established as a 94 event.
Excitement alone justifies this sport being at the games. Dave Juring, an Iowa State graduate, now going to school to be a chiropractor, finishes under a minute, a great time, combined of 1:59.01 as he sets the standard for the other sliders to follow in this second round.
All right, Dave.
and a happy coach congratulating Dave Joring. Martin Toller was fourth after the first run.
Martin's got some time to make up here. He still has his starts below 5:10. 5:05, a very good start for Martin Toller.
Generally, these tracks slow down in the second run.
Generally, they do. The ice gets a little chipped up and beat up, particularly at the start.
Speaking of that start, we see, as you said, those 36-year-old legs, which can't be getting any stronger.
Look how early he gets onto the sled, much earlier than the other sliders. He tries to hit it at the peak acceleration, and that's his technique that's been developed over the years.
Well, the time considerably better than Joring's, as Toller now has a smooth ride down the center of the run.
He's looking good coming down this straightaway. Holding himself well through little S. Feet are in the air high.
And 6,500s out in front, offsetting the fact that the track is getting slower. It has stopped snowing, and that will help the times. 59.97 is Dave Joring's time on your left. Toller crosses the finish line high and low. 59.43, a combined time, is good enough for the lead.
Look at that major alteration of that $300 speed suit. The entire left shoulder's been ripped off. He's shaking his head in dismay.
That shows the impact, and Dave, we're now looking at that impact.
You can see that he took the finish wall too high, drove him down into the wall, and then his helmet again went off the wall of the exit ramp.
Track is clear. First
struggling
one from
here,
the
just
USA
finishing this course.
RV Garrett aboard.
And struggling up the exit ramp. Back up top, Gregor Stoley having trouble with his sled in a show of sportsmanship. To our final three competitors, American Orvie Garrett was in third place after the first round.
Just 16/100ths out of first place. He's really got to kick it into gear here to get a great start.
5:05 the start to beat, not quite there.
Orvie's going to be a little bit disappointed with that start. Let's see if he can pick it up. He's a master of accelerating down this track.
Well, we take a look at that acceleration again right from the start.
He has that two-footed start, the explosion, and shifting his hands up onto the grips of the saddle. He has the long stride. Again, a little too much air before he hits the sled.
Orvie Garrett had a time of 58.63 in the first run. He's a little off the pace still here, and the times have been getting slower in the second round.
Orvie can pick it up on the bottom half of this track. He's been known to do that, and he accelerates all the way through to the finish. Cleanly through little S. He's approaching 12, taking it high with the leg. Oh, off the wall!
The crash against the wall not only cuts time, but bruises bones.
He's going to have real difficulty picking up any time down this last straightaway into the finish curve.
59.43 the time to beat. Orvie Garrett does not do that. 59.74. Martin Toller stays in first place, and the Americans' dream of finishing in the top three for the World Cup season may be over. Gregor Stoley's season certainly is not over. He was in second after round number one. He posted the fastest start time, and he's at it again.
5:05 on the left is Martin Toller's time, the fastest in the second heat, and a 4:79 for Gregor Stoley.
Once again, Stoley has set the standard and broken the track record at the all-important start in search of hunting down Christian Auer. Let's take another look.
You can see the long, explosive, powerful stride, and he's launching himself directly onto the sled without any air time.
Now approaching the first split. 27.94 is bettered by 0.6 by Gregor Stoley.
He started out this heat only 9/100ths behind Christian Auer and is holding himself well through the straight out of Big Shady.
Down the center of the track, Stoley is a student from Switzerland. He says he's not even sure of his future in this sport, but at this rate, that future may include a gold medal.
And perhaps in the Olympics in '94. Ooh, he's rocked out of the zag.
That's the finish time on your left of Austrian Martin Toller. Stoley takes the finish line hard, but crosses. His round time was nearly a second better. His combined time over a second better than the competition. Gregor Stoley moves into first place.
He's high in the lip of zag and then off the wall, rocking him on the sled. Now we're going to take a look at him in the finish curve. Feet spread, trying to stabilize and keeping off the wall at the finish.
That finish curve has been a menace for nearly every competitor, with speeds greater than they've ever seen on this track, and this is a familiar sight. Once again, Stoley is shaken up. So it all comes down to Christian Auer. The two-time defending World Cup champion is leading the way this season. Right now he is shooting for a gold medal here in Lake Placid and another season-long championship.
Christian's going to need the best start of his life to hold on to the lead here in the second heat with that strong start of Gregor Stolly and a 4.97. That should keep him in the running if he picks up speed through the rest of the course.
This is a sport with so many different sized athletes, Auer being one of the smallest.
He's small but very agile and strong, even with upper body strength. Quick entry onto the sled, low profile, good speed.
That's Stolly's split time on the left, and Christian Auer, 27.65, 3100ths off the pace.
He's taking himself low out of Shady, accelerating out of the exit, picking up speed coming down the course.
Auer with a few points to play with in the World Cup standings, but he would like nothing better than his third event win of the season and having some trouble again at the same spot near the bottom.
He's now only 2/10 behind, though, and he's picking up the speed down at the bottom half of the course.
He needs a 58 or better to top Gregor Stolly here in Lake Placid, and crossing the finish line, 58.62, and by 3/100ths of a second, Christian Auer loses out to Gregor Stolly.
Christian really racks himself here on the finish wall, jarring himself well above the sled.
So adding some injury to insult here, Christian Auer is shaken up at the finish, grabbing his hip. Gregor Stolly wins here in Lake Placid, followed by a pair of Austrians and then Americans Garrett and
are back. So is the speed and danger